The tension inside the Senate chamber was thick enough to cut with a knife. Cameras flashed, reporters leaned forward in anticipation, and the crowd, restless, murmuring a sense something monumental was about to unfold. Senator John Kennedy, known for his sharp wit and unshakable composure, stood calmly at the podium. Across from him sat Representative Maxine Waters, expression unreadable, yet her eyes betrayed a flicker of unease. Moments later, the nation would witness a revelation that neither friend nor foe saw coming. Kennedy began slowly, his tone steady but laced with weight. "You see, Madam Chair," he said, pausing for effect, "truth has a way of finding daylight, a broken bar even when it's buried deep in the dark." The room fell silent. Kennedy's southern drawl carried both charm and fire, but this time it carried something else, a conviction. He reached into a stack of documents and pulled out a folder. "What I'm about to share," he continued, "isn't about politics, it's about integrity, about the trust we owe the American people." Whispers filled the chamber. The folder contained records, letters, dates, and testimonia that painted a picture few could believe. Kennedy spoke of how Waters' own family had been quietly entangled in financial dealings with organizations her committee had publicly condemned. "It's not about guilt by association," he clarified. "It's about accountability, and because leadership starts at home." The words landed like thunderclaps. Waters tried to interject, but Kennedy pressed on, his voice rising and not in anger, but in righteous purpose. "When ordinary Americans struggle to pay their bills," he said, "when they're working 2 jobs just to survive, they expect their leaders to live by the standards we preach." The crowd's murmurs swelled into audible gasps. Some senators shifted uncomfortably, others stared straight ahead, unwilling to meet anyone's eyes. Then Kennedy did something unexpected. He softened. "Now, I don't bring this up to shame anyone," he said. "We all have families. We all make mistakes, but when power and privilege cloud our sense of duty, it's time to confront the truth, not hide behind it." His tone carried no malice, only the weight of hard honesty. The audience could feel the shift in energy. It was no longer about scandal, it was about principle. Kennedy turned toward the crowd, his gaze firm yet compassionate. "I was raised to believe," he said quietly, "that your name is only as good as your word. And when that word loses meaning, the whole system breaks down. So, we must demand transparency, not for revenge, but for redemption." A pause. Then came the eruption. Applause thundered through the room. People stood, clapping, shouting in agreement. Some even cheered through tears. It wasn't just about politics anymore, it was about truth cutting through years of noise and corruption. Kennedy didn't smile, he simply nodded, acknowledging the emotion surging around him. As the echoes faded, Waters sat silently. For a brief moment, her hardened political armor cracked. There was no yelling, no deflection, just a long, deep breath. Even those who had opposed Kennedy felt a flicker of respect. He hadn't humiliated her, he'd held up a mirror to power itself. Outside, news outlets were already ablaze. "Kennedy exposes family secret," read one headline. But the deeper story wasn't about exposure, it was about awakening. For the first time in years, Americans watching from their living rooms felt something rare, hope. Hope that integrity could still pierce the fog of politics. Later that night, as Kennedy left the Capitol, a small crowd waited by the steps. A young man in a worn-out uniform called out, "Senator, thank you for saying what we've all been thinking." Kennedy stopped, placed a hand on his shoulder, and replied softly, "Son, truth doesn't need to be popular, it just needs to be told." That moment captured the essence of it all. In an era of division and deceit, Kennedy's revelation wasn't just a political bombshell, it was a moral reckoning. It reminded the nation that character still matters, that courage still counts, and that sometimes, the loudest eruption of all, a broken bar, comes not from anger, but from truth finally being heard. And as the cameras turned off and the crowd dispersed, one thing was certain: John Kennedy hadn't just revealed a family secret, he had reignited America's belief that honesty, no matter how uncomfortable, still has the power to change everything.